From a compilation of articles by Rabbi Michael-ben-Pesach Portnaar. Perfection. This is when the masculine and the feminine do not need each other. Fragment from the Zohar, lesson 139. And so, as he told us in line 36, then two temples are going to stand eternally, and the light of the moon will be as the light of the sun. This is remarkable. What Yeshayahu, Isaiah, is talking about in this prophecy. Seemingly symbolic, because it does not speak in an accessible language, the language of Kabbalah, but in a deceptive way. And in this there is, of course, truth. He says that the moon and the sun are going to be equal, meaning that Zeir Anpin and Nukva are going to be equal to each other. And this is, to be precise, the goal of our individual correction, when we bring Nukva and Ze'ah to the same level, namely Gadlut. Then we get something marvelous. About this it's possible to learn in Tes, the end of the 7th part of the world Nekudim, where it is said about the shattering of the Kelim on a page Tet Kuf Lamed Beit, in the left column, line 5, after the period. Please refer to the Hebrew text in the written material. And just as Hagat and Nehi of the world Nekudim did not need each other, line 11 there, in this same way Ze'ah and Nukwa will no longer need each other, and therefore Ze'ah will no longer rule over Nukwa. This condition that exists in the general aspect, Gmar Tikkun, as we learn here, exists in each of our corrections in the state of mini Gmar Tikkun. This is not the general or even the private Gmar Tikkun, but this is an element of Gmar Tikkun as it exists in each state. But it must be reached in such a way that Ze'ah and Nukva would become identical. As he tells us here, and then in Gmar Tikkun, the light of the moon, Nukva, will be as the light of the sun, Ze'ah. This is the whole point of all of our corrections. In every person exists a masculine and feminine beginning, that is, Ze'ah and Nukva, right and left, above the Chazeh and under the Chazeh. And this applies to men as well as women. Human, Adam, means a being having both masculine and feminine. Thus is written in the description of the act of creation. He created them male and female. And this is human, having both masculine and feminine beginning. We're talking about the spiritual, meaning the soul of a person. In a man, masculine and feminine with the general masculine background, and in woman, masculine and feminine with the general feminine background. And so the Ari teaches us that when the Ze'ah and Nukva, or the masculine and feminine, are equal to each other on the level of Partzuf, in the big state, then they do not need each other. And this indicates the completed state. And then the masculine does not rule over the feminine component. In connection to this, it is good to remember the Creator's words that he addressed to Chava after the first sin, saying, "To your husband will be your desire, and he will rule over you." And due to this, the man will leave his family and unite himself with a wife, that is, with his own Nukva. In the Torah is given only the consequence of Adam and Chava's sin. It is a condition when the feminine component, or woman in the general aspect, has a desire for her husband. That is, she is dependent on the masculine component. There is inside the woman a drive, impulse towards her masculine part. And after Adam and Chava's sin, she projects this desire onto a man. No matter what the inclination or how much she would try to realize her desire, it will never satisfy her, because this condition is the result of the perversion. All arts, all creative literature is founded on the result of Adam and Chava's sin. The man's attraction towards a woman, this imaginary love between them, this is all just the result of Adam and Chava's sin. It is only the desire to receive and the different variations of receiving for one's own sake. And so the masculine will rule over the feminine as a result of the fact that she was seduced, and then in turn seduced Adam. Of course, he was certainly himself tempted, but he then began to rule over her, and this is the negative domination, which is not from the true masculine nature, being also the consequence of sin. And we learn here in Tess that only when a person constantly makes himself tikkunim in each of his desires, in each aspect of his desires, then he makes a correction and brings nukva to gadlut. Zeir Anpin himself, the male part, gives to nukva, and in this way builds his feminine component. And this way they come to be on the same level, and then Ari and Zohar tell us they do not need each other, and then the masculine does not rule over the feminine. The force of domination, action and feeling, which upsets the balance of the masculine component's equilibrium, is also a consequence of sin. This is comparable with what Lenin in his time said about revolution. This is a condition in which the lower do not want anymore for the upper to dominate, and the upper already do not want to have the ability to rule over the lower. The condition when the feminine ascends to the level of the masculine, and the masculine contributes in her ascension, and then both get to be on the same one level and no longer need each other, and only then there is possibility for a real, true unification of masculine and feminine, as inside the person first of all, so also in the general aspect, and then two people unite together in true matrimony.